One of the best ways to improve your photography and take your images to the next level is by getting a portfolio review. What's a portfolio review? This is a portfolio review. So this week we have the privilege of viewing the images from Andrew Elder. Andrew hails from Albany, New York. He has a small studio and a great website at bestframeforward.com. We encourage you to check it out. A real range of branding, events, portraits and family work on there. Andrew has a big range in his portfolio review today for us. He says that he likes to focus on storytelling, but for this review he'd like some feedback on editing, lighting and the technical aspects of photography. Happy to do that for you in a positive and constructive way for everyone to learn. We hope you're going to enjoy it. Let's take a deep dive now. So we start here with this image of Darby Allin. Darby looking straight down the middle of your lens. Look at this, just pin sharp right down the middle of the lens. So really well handled there, and great timing with regards to that shot. Some of the elements in the background, the blacks, especially here on the left-hand side, are just blocked up, and they're blocked up similar to the blacks in the attire, actually in the jeans and in the jacket. And it's just led to a matted feel, which is kind of classic. Good conversion to black and white. And I think the conversion to black and white for Darby is a wise one, because it does offer that sense of timelessness. But just with this face paint, I think that really lends itself well. When we squint and when we have a look at this image, the brightest part of the image is the chest, it is the face, so that's great. Slightly distracting elements here on the right hand side in the background, where those elements are just as bright as the face and the chest in the foreground. So if we can just work on our post-processing, just to bring those back in with the burn tool, maybe a small vignette, then we can really highlight Darby in the middle and draw our eye right into the center of that frame. But the connection on this one and the impact for this one, especially being right at his level on that top turnbuckle, really well executed. I like this image a lot, Andrew. Moving on to image number 2. I'm just going to take a while just to have a look at this, if that's okay. And what a dynamic portrait we have here. We have a real feel of movement, and we have a real feel of mood in the picture. And I love the look off camera, just off camera right there, with the hands up on the jacket. Really feels like he's putting that on in the moment, with the red light coming in, working in really nice color harmony with the greens in the jacket. That might be a dark jacket, it might be a black jacket, but the way that we've processed it, we've got hints of jade, hints of green in there, and where they're working alongside that red, and good balance there with the complementary colors, really lends itself to a dynamic portrait. Where we've got processing feedback, we can look at just going into these glasses and really cleaning up around the lenses here. So where we can see some scratches, where we can see some smudges, where we can see some reflections, we want to really tidy that up. We can do that with the mixer brush, we can do that with the smudge tool, we can do that with the dodge tool, we can do that with the burn tool, do that with all kinds of different things. Some of the detail in the skin here in the forehead and in the nose just starting to lose into highlights there. And it'd be good just to bring some of that skin detail back in, just so that we've got skin detail all the way through. And I think in some of the darker tones again here in the jacket, we've just lost some of the black detail. And it'd be nice just to bring that back up, either by sort of working with the shadows in the picture. If you go into image, adjustments, and then shadows and highlights, you'll get a little bar, like little slider up here that will have loads of options in there if you click show more options, and you'll be able to drag out some of the details in the shadows there, just to give you a slightly more balanced portrait there. Or you can go into the raw file. If you've still got the raw file, then it's easier to do it from there without having any sort of destructive elements. But what a dynamic portrait, and really well handled, and something that's really grabs the attention. I like it a lot. One other tiny thing as well, with rim lighting, you just got to be super careful with ears. You can see the ear here, where the light hits the back of the ear, you can see that it sort of comes through and really adds that sort of like highlight spot sort of inside the ear. So rather than adding a nice rim light just round the ear, it sort of highlights the skin through the back of the ear. And that's just because the rim light is too far round. Back in the day, you used to sort of like put a bit of putty behind the ear there just to stop the light sort of shining through if you were really in a controlled environment, a controlled film environment where every shot mattered. But it's just something just to bear in mind, that just for your rim light, just to maybe feather it in future, or just dial it down just a fraction. Lovely moment here. What a lovely casual portrait again, just and good detail throughout, focusing on the tattoos around, and what an interesting character we have here. I like the framing of the face around these really, really decorative dark feathered earrings. I think they're really, really smart. That small specular highlight in the top right hand corner just be knocked out a little bit. I think there it's just the brightest part of the image there, and we really again want the brightest part of the image to be the face, that we go straight to it. And I feel that the crop is just, it's a little tight overall, where we've cropped through this interesting pendant. We've cropped right through that. We've cropped through the arm on the left hand side, but we've not cropped through the hat at the top. We've not cropped through the arm on the right hand side, which means we're only cropping on two sides, and there's not really that sort of sense of negative space. It just leads to a slightly claustrophobic image without being too claustrophobic, like if you shot it on a really, really long zoom lens and we were really going after detail and going after something that was a bit more abstract. I feel this image just needs a little bit more room to breathe, and maybe negative space on the right hand side, so that we can have a look at the space that she's sort of looking into there. But a nice timing on the smile, but a really nice moment. It's just really, really heartwarming to see a natural smile caught in the moment, not looking like someone's been asked to smile, but just a real natural reaction to something. So I admire that one, Andrew. Oh, pin sharp here. Look at this. Great connection again, straight down the middle of the lens. I love it. Good use of your aperture. So we've got depth of field, so we can still see the background. We can still see some of the drapes. We can still see some of the lights. We can still see the logo going through the head. It's a taste thing, whether you like that or not. I don't mind it. I think it frames the model quite nicely. I think it frames the branding well within the context of the image and the balance of the color tones in the background. The purple of that logo with the blue of the drapes either side. Good catch lights in the eyes, and this hard lighting, this hard light source is really, really good for showing off muscle definition, which this guy clearly has. I'm not sure about the cropping of the lights through the top of the frame. I feel that maybe if they were kept in, we may have a bit more balance to the picture that may draw our eye into the frame more naturally. And the brightest part of this image is the rim light that we've used here. And what the rim light's done is it's not only given us a bright chest and a bright hand, but it's also given us that harsh shadow from the hand onto the abdomen here. And because that's there, it's a shame, because it does act as a bit of a distracting element. And I think if we'd have maybe had our kicker light a little bit higher, so it's coming down from 45 degrees into the frame here, that shadow would not be so apparent. And maybe look at the lighting ratios between your main light and your kicker light. The kicker light might just be a little bit too direct, and it also might be a little bit too harsh here. We can amend that by just turning down the power of the light. We can add a modifier to that light just to soften it a little bit, or we could turn it away from the subject towards the camera almost, which means that it will feather the light and give us a much softer light on that kicker light on that left hand side as we look at it here. But great aggression, great character, and great expression straight down the middle of the lens. So good connection between photographer and subject here. Andrew's done a great job with this one. Whoa, moments in time that cannot be replicated. Here we go. This is a huge uppercut, and what lovely shapes working with this. The overall feeling of the triangle running through the middle of the frame. And it's all about this impact. We've got it just after the moment of impact. And how often do I talk about in our wrestling videos about how it's not the move and the moment the move is hit. It's about the moment just afterwards, the moment just after the impact where all the expression comes through. And the positioning on here, on what I assume is hard cam, been well handled here by Moxley. He's done this move, so he's done it straight out to camera, which is perfect for you sat on that side. Crop's a little tight. I want to see those feet in shot if we can in the bottom of the ring, but good use of the lines throughout. You can't do anything about the ring ropes in front except keep it straight, and this is absolutely on the horizon level straight, so good post-processing in there. The use of the wide aperture has allowed us to really focus in on the detail that's going in on the foreground, and we've even got all those spit globules going up in the air, which is really, really nice. Again, I feel the shadows are just a little bit too harsh on this image here for me, just a little bit too dark in the shadows, particularly with the areas with the elements in the background. Sometimes it's nice to see the crowd and the way that they react to these images, but you'll often find that there's like a 1 second, 2 second delay to the move, so they won't actually react to this moment of the move, but they'll in 2 or 3 seconds time they might be on their feet cheering it. Have an experiment as well. We talk about working on hard cam and keeping these lines straight. I mean, that's what we're doing for copy, that's what we're doing for editorial, that's what we're doing for the event and for the promoters, keeping everything straight. Have a little bit of a play around though. If you get the opportunity, have a look at some Dutch angles, have a look at making some shakes with those ring ropes, have a look at getting in even closer into the shot and creating some dramatic shapes and dramatic angles to sort of like really bring the images up to the next level. But this is a great timing on this shot, great moment, sort of well captured there. Okay, lovely headshot. We're into the world of headshots now, so corporate and portrait headshots. Good processing on the skin here, really clean processing on there. Good color harmony as well. We've perfectly married up the purple in the jumper with the purple in the background, so much so that they're almost the same color. Sometimes with these sort of analogous color schemes, it's quite nice just to play around with them and just go a couple of stops along the color wheel, just to keep them all in the same sort of segment, but just play with a little bit of different tones there. And what that'll enable us to do is allow this purple jumper to really stand off the background. If we really wanted it to stand off, if we really wanted that purple to make an impact, we'd use a yellow background, we'd use the complementary color on the other side to really make that sing. But yellow in photography, especially studio photography, really difficult color to work with. This is probably the safest option there, and it's actually given us a really uniform portrait with good impact. And we don't know as well if this is a brand headshot. Purple may be the theme, purple may be the color, so to fulfill the client brief in that way is really well handled. Again, good use of a kicker light there on the side of the face. I would maybe just, it's very heavy on the face and not so heavy on the shoulders, so maybe have a look at the direction of the light there. And this hand placement here could potentially just be a little softer and just a little bit more gentle. Generally speaking, when we're placing hands in photographs, my rule of thumb, if you excuse the pun, is that we should see at least all 4 fingers so that we can see them in there and have a nice shape just coming through the frame here. In this instance, we can only see 3 of the sort of 5 digits on the hand, if that makes sense. But what's been nicely handled there is that we can see this little tattoo up here on this finger here, which I really like. It's a nice little accent, nice little detail. Overall though, in this studio environment, good connection, great smile, really believable smile. And sometimes that's a really hard thing to achieve in studio. So you're obviously creating, in your small studio, you're creating an environment where these people are feeling happy, where they're feeling comfortable with you, which is really important. Have a look at this kicker light as well, just a little bit of light spilling onto the top lip here, which is like just a tiny little bit distraction. This is marginal, tiny little bits of attention to detail there. But no, really admire this portrait, really engaging. And if you're knocking out corporate headshots like this, then you've got a business, which is great. Skin neck, oh, I'm not going to repeat that. Okay, good. Again, I'm going to keep repeating myself, that's fine. It's great connection and it's good scene setting. And it's good sort of almost monochromatic color scheme, because what we've got here is essentially like really harsh tattoos, black gloves, this black nail varnish just on the thumbs and the fingers we can see, a black beard, a huge black and white t-shirt, big white rope, big white battle rope, but then the background, you've got the circuits drawn on in chalk on a black board. So all of that black and white element is really coming across this image. It makes me question why a black and white conversion wasn't made, but I quite like the skin tones throughout. Couple of things on this one. Distracting element in the top left hand side here with this white area here could have been just removed. A wider crop might have helped this, because then we would have seen both hands, and I want to see both hands because there's detail on those hands, there's detail in the gloves and there's details on the nails, so I really want to see that. In the shot, we're not really working on an area of symmetry, we're just off center, which is a tiny bit of a shame. I think this sort of symmetrical pose with a symmetrical placement in the frame would have way more impact, and just where it's just off there, just a tiny little bit distracting. Overall as well, just the processing on the skin, we've got very harsh lights working in from the top and also the side. The kicker light's fine, I don't mind the harsh light on the kicker light. It's this skin processing here and this big area of highlight on the forehead where we could have just brought, and also just down the nose as well, where we could have brought in some more detail. And aside from the forehead and the nose, really the brightest part of the image is that little bottom lip in there, which could have just been darkened down as well. Overall, strong portrait. I'm getting a real good sense and feel of character from this guy. And yeah, totally tells the story of, I assume, this gym environment, which is working really, really well, Andrew. Back into marks, back into your deep blacks. That's fine. I'm getting used to it now. This is your style. This is your processing style. I like it. And interesting, and this is what I was talking about before, about trying to take this hard cam position and do something different with it. And what we've managed to do here is go super close in. And there's a real sense of balance. Again, brightest part of the image is the head, which is great, taking us to the subject in here. We can see the word combat on the back, which is on the back of the jumper, which is giving us context. We can see the people looking towards him, which is giving it a big feel. And because we've zoomed in nice and close, the frame is filled with fans in the background. But the symmetry of those two mock signs either side is fortunate and really well handled. In this instance, if you could have changed this, and I know that you're set up with your settings in your apertures and all that kind of thing, but if you're on aperture priority, potentially when you know you're focusing on signs in the background as well as whatever's going on in the foreground, just knock that aperture reel up to 16, 11 or 16, and what you'll find is there'll be a greater depth of field, so that when we do take these long shots, there will be more detail, especially in the signs in the background, which will just give it some context. They're a little bit out of focus, particularly the faces, and we can see the back of him. We know what the context of this is, and if we were to switch focus entirely, never mind depth of field, if we were to completely switch focus onto the fans in the background, then we're actually telling the story of these fans who brought these signs along. And we don't really need the pin sharpness of the back of Moxley in the foreground. So there's a different way to approach this. It's difficult in the moment. I know I'm giving you advice on things that are happening split seconds in time. But this is what we're talking about, taking different approaches to move your photography and make it look different from everyone else's photography who's either working ringside or working on hard cam. Again, the processing is very, very heavy on those blacks, grainy feel. I guess that's the style. That's absolutely fine. I would work at trying to bring in some details in the blacks, but this is your style. It's very timeless, and I enjoy it a lot. Hey, Jericho! Rock and roll! So we've got Chris Jericho, and again, straight down the middle of the lens, which is really, really nicely handled. We've caught it with the blue light in the background, and just a little smattering of color of faces in color, just in that bottom third there, which I quite like. These ring ropes look a little bit off. Let's just have a look. Let's bring our guidelines in. Yeah, there we go. So you see here where it's kind of like where we've got a bigger gap here on this side than we have on this side. So those ring ropes are just slightly off horizontal, but a good timing on the lift of the bat. It's a shame again we haven't gone wider so we can't see the whole bat, but I like the timing in terms of the tassels on the sleeves sort of coming up, which is great. And again, looking straight down the middle of the lens, pin sharp, exactly what the promoters want to make it look like a big event. Lovely little shot there. Oh, this is interesting. And again, I see you're working with these color harmonies that are almost monochromatic, but in this instance, the skin tone being that sort of yellow, almost orangey sort of tone in here, really, really, and by that I mean really, really warm tones, not necessarily specifically orange, working in complementary color with the blue shirt, the blue belt, the blue trousers, and the blue background. A really, really endearing looking to camera there. Look at that. What a lovely connection you've got there. Stunning little pose, great physique, which has been perfectly shown off there, and the choice of lighting to go high with this lighting coming down has really, really elevated the muscular structure there in the pecs, in the chest, and in the abdomen, which I'm sure the model would have really, really appreciated here. Good use of shape just by pulling that arm to one side. If we could try and maybe do something with this loose arm on the right hand side here, either tucking it into the top of the belt line, bringing it out into a more dramatic style, sort of flicking it out to the side there. Good connection with the viewer though, lovely look down the lens. The crop on the top is just a little tight around the head. Maybe look at sort of giving yourself a bit more space. And I see where we've sort of got a little bit of fall off on the left hand side here. We could potentially look at just, you can use your generative AI to sort of like blend that in. You can use your mixer brush, you can use your dodge brush, all those kinds of things. We can see a tiny little bit of mottling on that background as well, where the paper's just a little bit wrinkled in certain areas. And again, that's maybe a depth of field issue. It's a post-processing issue. You can use sort of bokeh filters. You can use your mixer brush tool. Have a look at frequency separation online. That's a good way to do it, just to really make that background nice and smooth. But there's the beginnings here of a style, and a style of very real, believable portraiture, which I really admire. Like studio portraiture's in my wheelhouse. NoFussMust.com for more information on how to learn more about using studio lights, if you like. I don't know. Oh, I like that expression. The Dynasty. So we know what the brand is now. So the branding's in the background, which the promoter's gonna love. The look to the side has been really well captured. It looks a tiny little soft, as if we've focused just a little bit further in front of the subject than behind. But I love the placement in the frame on this third. I'd potentially, just having a look at this now, maybe even crop a little bit more off on the left hand side, where this area here in the background here is sort of highlighted here. I find that area just a tiny bit of a distraction. So if we were to lose this light in this area here, we're working even more dramatically on the rule of thirds. So the logo is in the top third. The subject is right on that left hand third, and he's looking into the 2/3 on the right hand side. Lovely color harmony throughout. Possibly a bit of a lower crop. Again, we're just cropping through the hand, so I either want to go higher and above that, or I want to come down lower and just keep that hand in. But for live event photography, that makes me feel like I'm there, which is exactly what you want from this sort of thing. Oh, this is interesting. See, this is and from this, I'm guessing as well, looking at the way that the small LED light on the mask is balancing up against the lights in the background, this is low light photography, and to get low light photography with this little grain is really well handled. We can see a tiny little bit of motion blur on the hand there in the foreground, but I love the way that circle on the mask is being replicated by this lovely sort of decorative lighting in the background as well, where it's sort of coming round the face. Good shape, beautiful like triangle shape throughout the picture, and these things are out of your control. I just want a bit more light on that subject, because at the moment the brightest part of the image is the background, not the subject. But it does draw me into that mask, and it does make me want to ask more questions. You're getting close to the action, which is half the battle really for a lot of these photos. There we go, more ringside work here, black and white. Again, we've cropped through the feet there. Be nice to see this a little bit wider. See a tiny little face down the bottom here as well. I don't know if you can see that as well, just poking through the guardrail, which I think is quite interesting. But yeah, challenging lighting conditions. And actually, it looks like they got some really strong, harsh lighting conditions in there. So it's a real opportunity here to experiment. I always say, if you're working like for the promoter, just listen and deliver what they ask. But if you're not, then you have an opportunity to really look at the whole scene. Have a look at where the light's falling. Have a look at where the highlights are, where the shadows are, where the dramatic action is. Because there is an element here where the light's coming in from the left-hand side. Almost looks sort of Sin City light sort of coming in from there. But his face is just turned away from it, so it's just hitting the side of the face, not getting a lot of light on the face. But there's a really dramatic, sort of shadow coming across here, and dramatic shadows coming across the chest. It's a shame about that ring rope in the foreground, just blocking off some of the action. If you are working ringside, if we can get close, try and get underneath that rope. But good expression, looking off to the side, and yeah, like I say, a really enjoyable, timeless black and white image there. Ooh, lovely use of your wide aperture to create that effect in the background. Good connection. Look at the way that that's working in the glasses as well. That's interesting. Oh, I quite like that. That's giving me an idea. Well, the one thing I don't need right now is more ideas. I just need more time. You can see that it's a wide aperture because we've also got the bokeh in the background, but we also have this the shoulders out of focus as well, and we can see the bokeh's real because it's sort of replicated in the glasses there. That would be a hell of a job to try and replicate that in there. Good low angle here, just trying to do something a little bit different. And again, weirdly, those lights in the background, which are mixtures of yellows and oranges, purples and blues, are replicated on what the guy's wearing in his hat, and particularly in the clothing here with yellows, oranges and blues. Not sure that the red at the bottom third isn't a bit too bright and a little bit too distracting there. That just feels like it's dominating the shot just a little bit. Potentially have him just open his shoulder up a bit more into camera. Just open that round just a little bit more. Just to broaden his shoulders up just a little bit. But a brave choice to go for this low angle here, which really sort of gives an air of dominance and gives a lovely sort of connection with the viewer. It's certainly an image that jumps out. I feel potentially with this in future, where this fanning out of this bokeh lights is happening, we almost want sort of like an even fan, and at the moment they seem to be fanning off on a harsher angle on the left hand side than they are on the right hand side. So try and work out a way to get that nice and even, but again, great connection and a really strong portrait headshot there. And our last image takes you to the world of wrestling. Jordynne Grace, Impact champion. Look at her physique, goodness me. Great timing on this one, just underneath and between those ropes. In this instance, the ropes aren't distracting. They're adding context because we can see ropes behind, we can see ropes in front. And we're working on a beautiful thing in a lot of photography. It's foreground, midground, and background. The background here, quite blurry in the background, but we have those back ropes as well, just giving us context to the fact that we're in a ring. We have Jordynne there holding the belt up, and in the foreground we have the ropes in the foreground and the audience members. And these audience members are making us feel like we're at the event. They're making us feel like we're at the big event. And ultimately a really presentable publicity photo here. If you can, in your Photoshop, just lose this little guy down here if we can. But overall, what a strong portrait, and what a lovely portrait to finish on. So thanks very much to Andrew for submitting your work. What an absolute pleasure, what an absolute privilege it was to have a look through it. I hope we've given you some feedback that will help you take your photography forward, help you take it to the next level. It's already at such a high standard, real bright future ahead for you there. If you'd like a portfolio review, you can get one. You need to email me, portraitofawrestler@gmail.com. If you'd like help with your lighting, with all the technical aspects of portrait photography and studio lighting, we can do that for you too. nofussmus.com. Even if you sign up there, you'll get a free posing guide, 100 free poses featuring the former WWE NXT superstar Aaliyah James. But there's also some training information up there and some videos to help take your lighting forward. And if you like the video, maybe put a comment below. I mean, you're supposed to do that. I'm supposed to say this during the middle of the video. What's your favorite image? Leave a comment below, whatever, or hit a like button or subscribe. Or the best thing to do though is to tell other people about it. If you find these portfolio reviews helpful, tell other people about it. It's the best way to get this small community growing just a little bit there. Thank you very much for watching, and as ever, all the very best.